Something strange is happening on the internet right now, and almost nobody is paying attention. While millions of people crowd around the same handful of AI tools, fighting over features, arguing about which chatbot is smarter, a completely different layer of the internet has been quietly assembling itself in the dark. Websites with capabilities that seem almost impossible. Tools that can hear your voice and replicate it in 40 languages. Platforms that can read 10,000 pages of your own research and answer questions about it in seconds. Systems that turn plain text into music, into presentations, into visual art with a precision that should not yet exist. These tools are not secret. They are not hidden behind government firewalls or locked inside classified laboratories. They are sitting right there on the open web, free or nearly free, available to anyone. So why does almost nobody know about them? That is the question this video is going to answer. By the time this is over, you will know about 10 AI websites that most people will not discover for years. And once you see what they can do, you will understand exactly why the people who already know about them are not in any hurry to tell you. Stay with me, because what we are about to uncover is not just a list of tools, it is a map of where power is shifting, right now, in real time. Here is something that the technology industry understands, but rarely says out loud. Every major technological shift in history has created two groups of people, the group that knew early and the group that found out too late. When the internet first became accessible to the public in the early 90s, most people dismissed it, a curiosity, a toy for academics and computer hobbyists. The people who saw its potential early and acted on that knowledge built some of the largest fortunes in human history. The rest watched it happen from the outside. We are inside a moment like that right now. Not with the internet this time, with artificial intelligence, and more specifically, with a wave of specialized AI tools that are, at this very moment, being discovered and quietly adopted by a small group of early movers who understand exactly what they have found. These are not the AI tools being advertised on television. They're not the ones with billion-dollar marketing campaigns or celebrity spokespeople. They are the ones being whispered about in developer forums, shared in private Discord servers, passed between freelancers, researchers, and creators who have stumbled onto something that gives them a measurable, undeniable edge. What you are about to see is a curated map of that hidden layer. 10 platforms, each one more surprising than the last, and one saved for the very end that will make you question how much of what you thought was difficult was ever actually necessary. We begin with a tool that sounds simple, almost too simple. But do not let the name deceive you. Napkin AI takes written text, any written text, and transforms it into visual diagrams and flowcharts in a matter of seconds. You paste in a paragraph, a business plan, a strategy document, a research summary, and the platform reads the logic buried inside your words and translates it into a clean, professional visual that communicates the same idea with 10 times the clarity. Now, on the surface, that sounds useful, but not particularly alarming. But here is what nobody is talking about. The human brain processes visual information 60,000 times faster than text. 60,000. What that means, in practical terms, is that a person who can translate their ideas into visuals instantly has a fundamentally different ability to persuade, to lead, to teach, and to sell than someone who cannot. For most of history, that skill required years of design training, or the money to hire someone who had it. Napkin eliminates that barrier completely. Consultants are using it to walk clients through complex strategies in minutes instead of hours. Teachers are using it to build explanations that students actually understand. Entrepreneurs are using it to build investor-ready visuals from rough notes before a meeting. But that is not the strangest part. The strangest part is how few people in these industries have heard of it. While the most talked about AI tools fight for attention, Napkin is quietly being adopted by the people who care less about hype and more about results. And results, in this case, are extraordinary. There is a dirty secret inside most organizations. Enormous amounts of human intelligence are wasted every single week on a task that should have been automated a decade ago. Building presentations, choosing fonts, aligning boxes, finding images, reformatting layouts after every edit. The average knowledge worker spends between 4 and 6 hours every week on presentation work. That is not creative work. That is administrative labor dressed up in design clothing. Gamma ends this. Gamma is an AI-powered platform that generates complete, professionally designed presentations, documents, and reports from a single text prompt. You describe your topic, your audience, and your goal. Gamma produces the entire deck with layouts that look like they came from a senior design studio. Images, structure, and narrative flow, all included. In 2026, Gamma has expanded far beyond slides. It now generates interactive documents and mini websites from the same prompt-based interface, meaning the line between a presentation and a published piece of content has effectively disappeared. But here is where it gets interesting. Companies that have quietly integrated Gamma into their workflow are not advertising the fact. Why would they? When you can produce in 10 minutes what your competitor spends a full day building, you do not announce it. You simply show up better prepared, more often with higher quality output. That asymmetry, invisible from the outside, but felt in every competitive interaction, is exactly how technological advantages compound. Gamma is one of the clearest examples of a tool that rewards the person who finds it early and punishes the one who does not. Stop for a moment. Because before we go further, there is something you need to understand about what is actually happening with these tools. What we are describing is not incremental improvement. This is not a slightly better version of something that already existed. Each one of these platforms represents the collapse of an entire category of specialized skill. Something that used to require years of training, expensive equipment, or a team of professionals can now be done by a single person, alone, in minutes. And the collapse is accelerating. The tools we are about to show you next do not just save time, they erase limitations that have existed for generations. What you are about to discover has implications that go beyond productivity. It touches something deeper, something about who gets to create, who gets to be heard, and who gets to compete. Pay close attention. In 2023, a small AI company quietly released a technology that the broadcasting, podcasting, and audiobook industries immediately recognized as either a revolution or a catastrophe, depending on which side of the microphone you were on. That company was 11 Labs. 11 Labs can clone a human voice from a short audio sample with a level of accuracy that is, to most people who hear it for the first time, genuinely disturbing. Not because it sounds artificial, because it does not. But voice cloning, as remarkable as it is only the beginning of what 11 Labs does. The platform generates natural, emotionally expressive speech in over 40 languages. It captures accent, rhythm, pacing, and the subtle human quality in voice that every other text-to-speech system has always missed. The output sounds like a real person, a specific real person, if you provide the sample. For content creators, the implications are staggering. A YouTuber who records in English can now produce their entire channel in Spanish, Hindi, Portuguese, and French without recording a single additional word. The voice that built their audience in one language can speak to the world. For small businesses, for authors, for educators in countries where professional voiceover was financially out of reach, this is not just a convenience, it is a new kind of access. But here is what nobody wants to say loudly. The professional voiceover industry, a global market worth billions of dollars, is facing an existential disruption. The people who built careers around their voice are confronting a technology that can replicate the most valuable thing they own. 11 Labs did not create this tension. The technology did, and the technology is not going back. There is a form of blindness that almost everyone walking around with a smartphone suffers from, and most of them do not know it. It is the blindness of searching for answers in a system designed not to answer you. Traditional search engines were not built to give you answers. They were built to show you links. And behind those links are advertisers, content farms, SEO-optimized articles written to rank rather than to inform, and an ocean of conflicting information that leaves you more confused than when you started. We have normalized this. We have accepted that finding reliable information means wading through noise, cross-referencing multiple unreliable sources, and making judgment calls about what to believe. Perplexity AI was built on the premise that this is unacceptable. Perplexity searches the web in real time, reads the most relevant and credible sources, synthesizes the information, and gives you a direct, clear, cited answer. Not a list of links, an answer, with the sources right there, attached, so you can verify every single claim. The difference in experience is almost shocking the first time you use it. But here's the layer underneath that most people miss. Every minute you spend sorting through irrelevant search results is a minute you are not thinking, creating, or deciding. The cognitive cost of bad information retrieval is not just time, it is mental energy, attention, the resource that everything else depends on. Perplexity does not just save you time, it returns your attention to you. And in 2026, attention is the most valuable thing you own. For as long as music has existed, access to it has been unequal. Not access to listening, access to making. Making music at a professional level required an instrument, years of practice, music theory, studio time, producers, mixing engineers, and in most cases, a level of natural talent that most people simply were not born with. The result was that the world has always been full of people with musical ideas trapped inside them, with no way to let them out. Audio is one of the tools quietly dismantling this reality. You describe the music you want, the genre, the mood, the tempo, the emotional texture, specific lyrical themes if you want vocals. Audio generates a complete, fully produced track, not a rough demo, not a backing loop, a real song with vocals that carry genuine emotional range, harmonies, instrumentation, and production quality that would have required a full studio team just 5 years ago. The outputs span every genre: folk, hip-hop, cinematic orchestral, electronic, jazz, and the quality is not uniformly impressive as a curiosity, it is genuinely, repeatedly, surprisingly good. Now here is where it gets stranger. The music industry has been wrestling with how to respond. Licensing debates are ongoing. Platforms are grappling with ownership questions. Entire legal frameworks are being challenged by music that no human hand composed. And while that debate plays out in boardrooms and courtrooms, individual creators are already using audio to produce soundtracks, original songs, and musical content at a scale and speed that was previously physically impossible. History is not waiting for the lawyers to catch up. There is a pattern in everything we have covered so far. Every single one of these tools is doing the same thing at a fundamental level. They are redistributing access. Access to design, access to information, access to voice, access to music. Things that were once protected by cost, geography, training, and time are being made available to anyone with an internet connection. This is not neutral. When access to capability becomes universal, the people and institutions that built their advantage on exclusive access to that capability face a reckoning. And the individuals who were previously locked out of those systems gain a kind of power they have never had before. The next tools we are about to reveal operate in domains where the gatekeeping has been even more severe: scientific knowledge, creative production, storytelling, research. What you are about to see in the second half of this list is where the redistribution gets truly radical. There is a crisis hiding inside one of the most important systems in modern society. Scientific research, the foundation of medicine, public policy, education, and technological development, is published at a rate that no human being can keep up with. Over 4 million peer-reviewed papers are published every year. Every year! The total body of academic literature doubles approximately every 9 years, and the vast majority of it sits behind institutional paywalls written in technical language designed for specialists, invisible to the general public. The result is a world where the most reliable information we have about health, psychology, climate, nutrition, and almost every other domain that affects daily life is effectively inaccessible to the people who need it most. Consensus was built to break through this wall. Consensus is an AI-powered research engine that searches across tens of millions of peer-reviewed papers and synthesizes what the scientific literature actually says in response to any question you ask, in plain language, with citations to the exact papers so you can verify the source. You ask whether a particular diet improves cardiovascular outcomes. Consensus tells you what the body of research concludes, not what a health blogger says, not what a supplement company funds, but what the peer-reviewed evidence actually shows. You ask about the long-term effects of a medication. Consensus surfaces the studies. The implications for medicine, journalism, policy, and individual decision-making are profound. But here is what makes this tool particularly significant in 2026. The gap between what science knows and what the public believes has never been wider. Misinformation spreads faster than correction. Intuition overrules evidence at a scale that causes measurable harm. Consensus is not just a research tool, it is an instrument of epistemic justice, and almost nobody outside specialist circles has heard of it. If you have spent any time with AI image generation tools, you know the one limitation that has plagued every single one of them: text. Ask any AI image generator to produce an image that contains readable words, a poster, a banner, a thumbnail with a headline, and what you get back is a visual nightmare. letters twisted into unrecognizable shapes, words that are phonetically close to English but belong to no human language, a limitation so persistent and so fundamental that it became one of the most reliable ways to identify AI-generated content. Ideogram was built specifically to solve this problem, and in 2026, it has solved it in a way that still catches experienced designers off guard the first time they see it. Ideogram generates AI images with accurate, clean, readable typography embedded directly within the visual. Posters, YouTube thumbnails, product labels, social media graphics, marketing banners, all from a text prompt, all with text that is actually legible. The downstream effects of this are enormous. Small businesses that could not afford graphic design now have access to professional quality visual assets. Content creators can produce custom thumbnails at scale without a designer on retainer. Marketers can test dozens of visual concepts in the time it previously took to build one. But what makes Ideogram particularly dangerous to the established design industry is not just the text rendering, it is the overall quality. In terms of style range, detail, and visual impact, Ideogram's outputs have reached a level that challenges work produced by trained professionals. The question the design community is quietly asking in 2026 is not whether AI will affect the industry. The question is how much of it will survive. There is a fundamental problem with how ideas are communicated in professional life. The tools we use were built for a different era. Static slides designed for projector rooms in the 1980s, documents formatted for printing on paper. The infrastructure of professional communication has not meaningfully evolved in decades. Tome is a direct challenge to that infrastructure. Tome is an AI-native storytelling platform that generates immersive, visually dynamic narrative documents from a text prompt. Not slides, not a website, something that sits between both, a living document where images respond to content, data visualizes itself in context, and the entire experience is designed around guiding the reader through an idea with intention and momentum. You describe your topic, your audience, and your purpose. Tome builds the entire structure, generates relevant visuals, writes supporting copy, and assembles it into something that looks like it was produced by a professional creative team. In 2026, Tome has become a quietly dominant tool in the venture capital and startup world, where the quality of how an idea is presented can be the difference between funding and rejection. Founders using Tome to build their pitch materials are arriving at meetings with materials that, aesthetically and structurally, outperform the competition by a visible margin. That margin is invisible from the outside. The investor sees a superior pitch. They do not see the tool that built it. That invisibility is not a bug. For the person who found Tome early, it is the entire point. There is a category of human experience that technology has never been able to fully touch. The desire to say something so specific, so personal, so emotionally precise that no existing song has ever quite captured it. Suno changes this. Suno is an AI music generation platform that creates fully produced, vocally driven songs from a text description. But unlike other music generation tools, Suno's output does not sound like a demonstration of what AI can approximate. It sounds like music, real music, with vocal performances that carry emotional weight, with harmonies that feel chosen rather than generated, with production that belongs to the genre it is targeting and executes within it with confidence. People are using Suno to create wedding songs written specifically about their relationship, memorial songs for people who have died, birthday songs that reference inside jokes and shared memories, anniversary gifts that could not have been bought at any price before this technology existed. But the implications extend far beyond the personal. Independent filmmakers are scoring their projects, YouTube creators are producing original theme music, brands are building sonic identities, game developers are generating adaptive soundtracks. An entire creative economy that was previously accessible only to those with musical training or significant financial resources has opened. And sitting underneath all of this is a question that nobody has fully answered yet. When a song is generated by AI at a human's direction, who is the artist? That question is not rhetorical. It is actively reshaping copyright law, platform policy, and the meaning of musical authorship in real time. Suno is at the center of that storm, and the storm is only beginning. We have arrived at the final tool on this list, and I want you to pay particular attention to this one. Because of all 10 platforms we have covered, this is the one that, once you understand what it actually does, makes you see everything else differently. NotebookLM was developed by Google, and on the surface, the description sounds almost modest. It is an AI-powered research tool that allows you to upload your own documents and have a conversation with them. But sit with what that actually means. You upload research papers, books, notes, transcripts, reports, anything you are working with, and then you can ask NotebookLM anything about that material. It will answer you in clear language with citations pointing to the exact passage in your documents where the answer comes from. Not from the general internet, not from a language model's general training, from your specific material, your curated knowledge base, answered in seconds with complete traceability. For a researcher working with hundreds of papers, this does not just save time, it reveals connections that no human reading the same material could have surfaced in the same time frame. For a student preparing for an exam, it transforms passive reading into active conversation with the material. For a lawyer building a case from thousands of pages of discovery documents, it becomes the difference between finding the critical detail and missing it entirely. But here's the revelation that stops most people cold when they first encounter it. NotebookLM can generate a podcast from your uploaded documents. Not a summary, a full audio podcast with 2 AI hosts who discuss your material in a natural, conversational, engaging format. You upload your research, NotebookLM turns it into an episode you can listen to on your commute. Think about what that means. The process of absorbing complex information, which has always required focused attention and dedicated reading time, can now happen passively while you drive, while you exercise, while you cook. The limitation was never intelligence, it was time and access. NotebookLM removes both. And that is the most quietly radical thing about it. Not the technology, the implication. That the boundaries we placed around deep learning, the idea that absorbing complex material requires formal study and concentrated effort, were never as fixed as we thought. They were just waiting for the right tool. Here is the thing about all 10 of these tools that nobody in the mainstream conversation is saying directly. Each one, on its own, is impressive. Together, they represent something that deserves a more serious word. They represent the systematic removal of the barriers that have historically determined who gets to create, who gets to be heard, who gets to compete, and who gets to learn. Those barriers were not always visible. They were embedded in cost, in time, in geography, in education, in access to institutions and professionals. Most people accepted them as natural features of the world. They were not natural, they were structural, and structure can change. What we are watching in 2026 in real time is the beginning of that change. 10 tools, 10 collapsed barriers, and behind them, a question that history will eventually answer. When everyone has access to the same tools, what determines who actually moves forward? The answer, as it has always been, is the person willing to learn, adapt, and act before the opportunity closes.
Let us go back to where we started. Someone, right now, is finishing a week's worth of work in 40 minutes. Not because they are exceptional, not because they have access to resources you do not have, because they found the right tool at the right moment and they used it. You now know about 10 of those tools. Napkin AI, turning complex thinking into instant visuals. Gamma, building world-class presentations in minutes. 11 Labs, giving any voice the power to reach the entire world. Perplexity AI, replacing the chaos of search with actual answers. Udio, creating original music from nothing but an idea. Consensus, unlocking the real findings of scientific research for anyone who asks. Ideogram, generating images with text that actually reads. Tome, building immersive narratives that command attention. Suno, producing emotionally real songs from a description. And NotebookLM, transforming your own knowledge into a research partner that never sleeps. The window that exists right now, where knowing about these tools gives you a genuine advantage over the people around you, is not permanent. These tools will eventually become common knowledge, the early advantage will close, the playing field will level again. But between now and that moment, there is a gap. And in that gap, for the person willing to step through it, is an opportunity that does not come along often. The cursor is blinking. The only question left is whether you are going to do something about it. If this opened your eyes, leave a comment below telling us which of these 10 tools surprised you the most. Share this video with one person who needs to see it, and subscribe, because the layer of the internet we just explored goes much deeper than 10 websites. We are just getting started.